Picture this: a vast, sun-scorched land where rivers snake through golden deserts, and crumbling stone walls whisper secrets from 6,000 years ago. This is Mesopotamia, the place where human history as we know it began. But what if I told you that hidden among these ruins, 30 astonishing wonders from the world's first civilization are still standing today? Not as lifeless relics, but as echoes of a time when humanity took its first bold steps toward the future. These aren't just ruins, they're time capsules waiting to be unlocked. Mesopotamia gave us more than just ancient bricks and dusty scrolls. It's where writing was invented, where the first cities rose from the earth, where laws were carved into stone to shape society itself. Think about that for a moment. Every book you've ever read, every city you've ever walked through, every rule that keeps the world running, it all traces back to this single stretch of land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And yet, so much of its glory has slipped through the cracks of history, overshadowed by pyramids and colosseums. But today, we're going off the beaten path to uncover the forgotten marvels that still stand, silent but defiant against the weight of time. Imagine walking through a temple where priests once decoded the will of the gods, or touching a wall that witnessed the rise and fall of empires. These aren't just stories, they're real places waiting to be rediscovered. From towering ziggurats that pierced the heavens to intricate canals that turned desert into paradise, Mesopotamia's genius is etched into every stone. And the most incredible part, you've probably never heard of half of them. So grab your explorer's hat, because we're about to journey into the heart of the ancient world, where every crumbling archway holds a story, and every forgotten monument is a piece of the puzzle that shaped us all. This isn't just history, it's your history, and trust me, by the end, you'll never look at the past the same way again. Standing like a stairway to the heavens in the middle of Iraq's desert plains, the Ziggurat of Ur is one of Mesopotamia's most breathtaking survivors. Built over 4,000 years ago by King Ur-Nammu, this towering temple wasn't just a monument, it was a bridge between earth and the divine. Picture 3 massive tiers of sun-baked mud brick, each layer smaller than the last, climbing nearly 100 feet into the sky. At the very top sat a gleaming shrine dedicated to Nana, the moon god, where priests once performed rituals under a canopy of stars. What's truly astonishing is how this structure has endured through wars, sandstorms, even the slow grind of centuries. Unlike Egypt's pyramids built from solid stone, the ziggurat was crafted from humble mud bricks, yet it outlasted empires. The secret, bitumen, a sticky, tar-like waterproofing that Mesopotamian builders smeared between each brick, turning fragile clay into something nearly immortal. Even today, if you visit at sunset, the entire ziggurat seems to catch fire, its bricks glowing molten gold as if lit from within. But it wasn't always this pristine. By the 20th century, the ziggurat was crumbling, its edges softened by time. Then came a rescue mission straight out of history itself. Saddam Hussein ordered its restoration in the 1980s, even stamping new bricks with his name, as if etching himself into Ur-Nammu's legacy. Today, walking its reconstructed stairs, you can almost hear the echoes of ancient hymns, feel the shadow of a civilization that believed mountains could touch the sky. This isn't just a pile of old bricks, it's humanity's first skyscraper, a testament to what happens when faith, ambition, and mud collide. Now let's step through a portal to another world, a towering gateway of shimmering blue and gold that once marked the entrance to Babylon's inner city. The Ishtar Gate wasn't just a door, it was a statement, a declaration of power and devotion crafted under King Nebuchadnezzar II in the 6th century before the Common Era. Imagine standing before it, walls of the richest lapis lazuli blue, studded with golden dragons and bulls that seemed to breathe in the flickering torchlight. These weren't mere decorations. The dragons, or Mushasu, were sacred to Marduk, Babylon's patron god, while the bulls symbolized Adad, the storm deity. Every glazed brick whispered of divine protection, a celestial army frozen in clay and enamel. But here's the twist: the gate you can visit today isn't in Iraq. After archaeologists unearthed its fragments in the early 1900s, they shipped thousands of bricks to Berlin, where the gate was painstakingly rebuilt inside the Pergamon Museum. Walking through it now feels like time travel. The blues are still hypnotic, the animal relief so crisp they could snap to life at any moment. Look closer, and you'll spot something extraordinary. Many bricks bear tiny cuneiform inscriptions, prayers stamped by the workers who molded them. These weren't anonymous laborers. They signed their devotion into the very bones of Babylon, etching messages like Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, the one who provides for Esagila and Ezida, referencing the city's great temples. What's haunting is how much we've lost. The gate in Berlin is just the smaller, inner section. The original stood nearly 50 feet tall, part of a processional way lined with over 120 lions. Yet even these fragments hold magic. The glaze recipe was a closely guarded secret, a mix of minerals and craftsmanship that kept the colors vibrant for millennia. Modern tests still can't perfectly replicate it, and those golden beasts, they were more than art. They were a last line of defense, meant to terrify enemies and bless allies. Standing here, you're not just seeing a ruin, you're witnessing the pride of an empire that believed even its walls could touch the divine. Now let's journey north to the twin hearts of the Assyrian Empire, Nimrud and Nineveh, cities so mighty they shaped the ancient world, only to vanish beneath the sands for centuries. These weren't just capitals, they were powerhouses of innovation, intimidation, and grandeur. Start with Nimrud, a city that once glittered with palaces lined by colossal winged lions, the legendary Lamashu. These weren't mere statues, towering over 15 feet tall with the bodies of bulls, the wings of eagles, and the faces of kings. They were the ancient world's ultimate guardians. Carved from single slabs of gleaming alabaster, they stood at every gate, their 5 legs creating an optical illusion. From the front, they appeared still, but from the side they seemed to stride forward, watching all who entered. But the Lamashu were more than art. They were psychological warfare, symbols of Assyria's unshakable might. Imagine being an enemy envoy walking beneath their piercing stone gaze, knowing these creatures represented an empire that never lost a battle. And inside the palaces, walls covered in intricate reliefs depicting royal hunts, sieges, and court ceremonies, each scene a propaganda masterstroke. One relief even shows King Ashurnasirpal II hosting a 10-day feast for 69,000 guests, complete with wine, music, and rare spices, an ancient flex of wealth and power. Then there's Nineveh, Nimrod's rival sister city, home to a wonder that might rewrite history, the lost palace gardens of King Sennacherib. Forget everything you've heard about the hanging gardens of Babylon. New evidence suggests they were here all along. Sennacherib's cuneiform tablets boast of an engineering marvel: terraced gardens watered by an advanced system of aqueducts and screw pumps, towering over the city like a green mountain. One inscription even describes bronze Archimedes screws centuries before Archimedes lifting water from the Tigris to drench the roots of exotic trees. Archaeologists have found the remains of these aqueducts, some still standing after 2,700 years, their stones etched with the king's name. Yet both cities met a tragic fate. In 2015, ISIS militants bulldozed Nimrod's Lamashu, releasing videos of their destruction as global archaeologists watched in horror. But here's the resilience. Teams are now piecing together the fragments, using 3D scans to resurrect what hatred tried to erase. Meanwhile, Nineveh's gardens, buried under modern mossel, are slowly emerging thanks to local scholars risking their lives to preserve them. These cities aren't dead, they're battlegrounds where history fights back, stone by stone. Deep in the flooded heartlands of southern Iraq, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers spill into vast wetlands, an ancient way of life still floats literally. The Marsh Arabs' reed houses are more than shelters. They're living fossils of Sumerian ingenuity, built the same way for over 5,000 years. Picture clusters of towering, arched structures rising from the water like giant baskets, their golden reeds woven so tightly they repel rain and wind. Each one is crafted from cassava, a reed that grows taller than a man bundled into thick columns, then bent and lashed together with ropes made from date palm fibers. No nails, no concrete, just materials the land provides, just as it did when the first marsh dwellers stepped into these waters millennia ago. What's astonishing isn't just their longevity, but their sophistication. These aren't crude huts. The largest homes, called mudhifs, stretch over 50 feet long, with vaulted ceilings that soar like cathedral arches, all held up by the tension of the reeds themselves. Step inside and you'll find intricate matting dividing spaces for cooking, sleeping, even hosting guests are designed so effective it stays cool in blistering summers and warm during chilly winters. And because they float on layers of woven reed mats, the entire house can be untied and moved if the water rises too high. Imagine that, a civilization that figured out sustainable, mobile architecture before the wheel was even common. But the real magic lies in the people who still build them. Meet the Madden or Marsh Arabs, descendants of the ancient Sumerians who refused to let this tradition die. My grandfather taught me to weave reeds before I could walk. One craftsman told me, his hands moving swiftly as he demonstrated the same knots his ancestors used. Despite Saddam Hussein draining the marshes in the 1990s to punish rebellion, and later droughts threatening their way of life, the Madden returned, rebuilding their floating villages just as they've done for centuries. Today, their homes double as time capsules. The same reeds that once shaded Sumerian fishermen now shelter children playing with smartphones, a surreal blend of epochs. And here's what's humbling: modern engineers are just catching up. Studies show these reed structures outperform concrete in seismic zones, flexing instead of cracking during earthquakes, while their carbon footprint is practically zero. Universities now study their designs for eco-housing projects. So when you see a Marsh Arab home, you're not looking at a relic. You're witnessing a blueprint for the future, spun from the oldest strands of human survival. Perched like a crown atop the plains of northern Iraq, the Erbil Citadel isn't just another ancient ruin, it's a living, breathing time machine. For over 5,000 years, this towering mound has been home to kings, traders, and everyday families, making it the oldest continuously inhabited place on Earth. Walk its narrow alleys today, and you're treading the same stones where Assyrian merchants haggled over spices, where Ottoman governors held court, and where, right now, a handful of residents still whisper goodnight to walls that have sheltered generations. What makes the citadel extraordinary isn't just its age, it's the layers. Literally, the hill itself is an archaeological lasagna, with each civilization building atop the ruins of the last. Modern houses with ornate wooden balconies sit directly atop Assyrian foundations, their brickwork fused together by time. Beneath them, a labyrinth of tunnels, some excavated, others sealed shut, rumored to hold everything from caches of cuneiform tablets to the lost treasures of ancient rulers. Local guides will tell you about a hidden chamber, accidentally discovered during renovations, where workers found a stash of coins minted by Alexander the Great's generals, proof that even history's greatest conquerors passed through here. Then there's the engineering. The citadel's hill isn't natural, it's artificial, painstakingly built up over millennia from the debris of collapsed buildings. Think about that, an entire mountain crafted from human hands, rising nearly 100 feet high. Its edges are sheer cliffs, a defensive masterstroke that made it nearly impregnable. Attackers would have had to scale walls while boiling oil rained down from above, a fact the citadel's Kurdish defenders used to repel Mongol invaders in the 13th century. Today, UNESCO protects the site, but preservation walks a delicate line. Some homes still have original 19th century stained glass, while others reveal flashes of vivid blue Assyrian tiles when plaster chips away. Archaeologists use ground-penetrating radar to map the tunnels without disturbing them, revealing chambers that might hold undiscovered libraries or temples. Walking here at dusk, when the call to prayer echoes off the ancient stones, you realize something profound. This isn't a relic frozen in time. It's a place where the past refuses to die, where every brick holds a story waiting to be heard, if only we're patient enough to listen. Rising from the dusty plains of southern Iraq like a beacon of celestial knowledge, the White Temple of Uruk still commands attention after 4,000 years. This wasn't just another shrine, it was Mesopotamia's towering observatory, a sacred calculator where priests turned architecture into a cosmic compass. Built atop a man-made mountain of packed earth and brick, the temple's 40-foot-high platform lifted it above the haze, offering priests an unobstructed view of the heavens. Picture it now, walls gleaming with gypsum plaster so reflective they shimmered like a second moon, visible for miles across the floodplain. Every sunrise would have set the entire structure ablaze with light, a daily reminder that this was where Earth touched the stars. Inside, the real magic happened. Archaeologists found clay tablets here covered in meticulous star charts, tracking Venus's cycles and lunar eclipses with eerie precision. The temple's corners align perfectly with solstice sunrises, while narrow windows frame specific constellations during key farming seasons. This wasn't divine guesswork, it was math carved into stone. The priests of Uruk didn't just worship the sky, they reverse-engineered it, using the temple's angles like a giant stone calculator to predict floods, plan harvests, and even time royal coronations to celestial events. Modern CGI reconstructions reveal an even more astonishing detail. The temple's original whitewash contained powdered quartz, making it sparkle under starlight. Imagine standing there at midnight, the entire building glowing faintly as priests traced constellations across its walls with charcoal, noting Jupiter's dance or Mars's red pulse. Some researchers believe the temple's layout mirrors the path of Enlil, an ancient Mesopotamian concept dividing the sky into three celestial roads, proof that Uruk's astronomers mapped the heavens centuries before the Greeks named the zodiac. But the White Temple's genius goes deeper. Beneath its platform, excavators discovered older temples stacked like layers of a cosmic onion. Each time the structure was rebuilt, always on the same sacred alignment, the old version was ceremoniously buried, preserving millennia of astronomical data in its bones. Today, as drone scans reveal hidden chambers filled with untouched tablets, we're only beginning to crack the code of humanity's first space-age thinkers. Their legacy isn't just in the stars, it's in every GPS satellite and weather forecast, tracing back to this glowing white hill where priests turned the sky into a calendar. Beneath the windswept ruins of Ur lies a secret that redefined our understanding of Mesopotamia's elite. The royal tombs, a labyrinth of gold, music, and chilling mysteries. When British archaeologist Leonard Woolley cracked open these burial chambers in the 1920s, he didn't just find treasure. He uncovered a window into a world where death was a spectacle and power stretched beyond the grave. The star of the show, Queen Puabi, her skeleton still draped in a diadem of gold leaves and lapis lazuli beads so finely crafted they seem woven from starlight. But it's what surrounded her that shook historians, a retinue of sacrificed guards, musicians, and handmaidens, their bodies arranged in perfect rows as if frozen mid-ceremony. Woolley called them the death pits, and their discovery sparked a debate that still rages today. Were these willing participants in a sacred journey to the afterlife, or victims of a ruler's tyranny? The clues are in the details. Some attendants hold cups, traces of poison found inside, suggesting a ritual toast before eternal slumber. Others clasp instruments, their fingers curled around lyres decorated with golden bulls' heads, as if music would accompany them into the underworld. Then there's the eerie tranquility of their poses, no signs of struggle, just careful, almost theatrical arrangement. Could this have been Mesopotamia's version of an honor guard, choosing to follow their queen into eternity? But the darkest twist lies in the logistics. The tomb's construction hints at something more calculated. The main burial chamber was sealed first, with victims placed in adjoining corridors later, their bodies sometimes stacked in layers. Chemical analysis reveals they died simultaneously, likely from blunt force trauma, not poison. And the artifacts tell two stories: exquisite gold helmets for soldiers, delicate silver rings for servants, a hierarchy preserved even in death. What's undeniable is the craftsmanship. Puabi's headdress alone is a masterpiece, its gold ribbons designed to ripple with her movements, lapis sourced from Afghanistan, carnelian from India, a proof of trade networks stretching thousands of miles. Even the queen's cloak was lined with beads in patterns mimicking the constellations, a celestial map for her journey. Yet for all its beauty, the tomb forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Mesopotamia's grandeur was built on systems where loyalty and life itself were currencies. Standing before Puabi's reconstructed headdress in the Penn Museum today, you're not just admiring art, you're staring into the eyes of a civilization that saw eternity as a privilege and was willing to pay the price. Carved into the rugged hills of northern Iraq, the Aqueduct of Jerwan isn't just an ancient waterway, it's a manifesto in stone, proclaiming the brilliance of Assyrian engineering 7 centuries before Rome's famed aqueducts even existed. Picture a 2-mile-long limestone giant, its blocks so precisely fitted that not even a razor blade could slip between them, carrying fresh mountain water 50 miles to quench the thirst of Nineveh, the world's largest city. This wasn't just plumbing, it was liquid supremacy, a feat so advanced that modern engineers still marvel at its ingenuity. The secret lies in the details. Walk along its remains today, and you'll see curves calculated to millimeter precision, ensuring water flowed smoothly without erosion. The channel's gradient drops just 1 foot per mile, a slope so gentle it defies the era's crude tools. But the real stroke of genius, the anti-siphon trenches carved beneath key sections, a safety feature that prevented destructive air pockets, a trick the Romans wouldn't rediscover for another 500 years. And every stone bears the mark of its creator, cuneiform inscriptions proudly naming Sennacherib's engineers, making this the world's first signed infrastructure project. What's staggering is the scale of its ambition. This aqueduct was just one link in a sprawling hydraulic network, canals, dams, and even an early form of water filtration using graded gravel that turned Nineveh's arid surroundings into a green paradise. Ancient texts boast of orchards irrigated by water that climbs mountains, likely referencing the system's rumored use of screw pumps. But here's the twist. Recent drone surveys reveal hidden tunnels branching beneath the aqueduct, possibly part of a fail-safe system to reroute water during sieges. The legacy: look to Rome. When Assyria fell, its engineers scattered across empires, taking their knowledge westward. The Pont du Gard's triple-tiered arches may echo Jerwan's stepped supports, while the precision of Roman concrete channels mirrors Assyria's obsession with perfect seams. Yet history remembers Rome's aqueducts while Jerwan crumbled into obscurity until now. As archaeologists piece together its fragments, they're rewriting the story of engineering itself, proving that the ancient world's greatest marvels weren't always where we thought they'd be. Among the most haunting survivors of Mesopotamia's golden age stand the statues of Gudea, 22 silent sentinels carved from black diorite, their eyes wide with eternal devotion. These aren't just royal portraits, they're frozen prayers, each one inscribed with pleads to the gods for prosperity, justice, and reign. Gudea, ruler of Lagash around 2100 years before the Common Era, didn't commission these statues to flaunt his power. He carved them as conduits to the divine, their polished surfaces meant to reflect heaven's gaze back onto his people. What's mesmerizing is their hyper-realism. Unlike the stiff, symbolic art of Egypt or the exaggerated muscles of later Greek statues, Gudea's likenesses pulse with quiet humanity. The drape of his robe falls in precise folds as if caught mid-movement. His bare arms smooth yet muscular curve with the subtle tension of a scribe's forearm, a detail only possible from artists who watched their king work. Even his fingernails are rendered with crescent moon precision, each one a tiny masterpiece, but the true marvel, the diorite itself. This volcanic rock, sourced from Oman's distant mountains, is harder than granite. Ancient sculptors had to shape it using abrasives like quartz sand, spending months polishing each statue to a mirror finish, a labor of faith as much as skill. That hardness saved them from history's scavengers. When empires fell and looters swept through temples, bronze statues were melted down, gold idols stripped and smelted. But Gudea's diorite guardians defied destruction. Their bodies were too dense to smash easily, their material worthless to metal-hungry raiders. One statue bears the scars of an attempt, deep gouges where thieves tried to cleave off its head, only to abandon the task in frustration. The inscriptions tell another story. Cuneiform prayers coil around the statues' backs and shoulders, some so small they're barely visible. For the god Ningersu, his king, Gudea built this temple, one reads. May his name be spoken for eternity. And here we are, 4,000 years later, doing just that. Modern scans reveal even more text hidden in the stone's natural fissures, suggesting scribes used the rock's imperfections as spiritual veins, channeling words directly into the statue's heart. Today, standing before Gudea's serene face in the Louvre or the Metropolitan Museum, you're not just seeing art, you're witnessing a conversation carved in stone, a ruler's plea to the gods etched so deep even time couldn't erase it. The statues outlived his kingdom, his language, even the gods he worshipped, and perhaps that was the point all along, to make memory so solid, so unbreakable, that not even oblivion could wear it away. Hidden beneath the dunes of Nineveh for 25 centuries, Ashurbanipal's library wasn't just a collection of tablets, it was the ancient world's first intentional act of preservation, a royal decree to gather every written word under one roof. Picture 30,000 clay tablets, each one hand-copied by scribes dispatched across the empire, their styluses etching everything from medical recipes to omens drawn from barking dogs. But the most astonishing twist, this treasure only survived because of catastrophe. When invading Medes torched Nineveh in 612 before the Common Era, the flames didn't destroy the tablets. They fired them like pottery, turning fragile clay into indestructible time capsules. Among the rescued texts was humanity's oldest great story, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Before archaeologists pieced together its cracked fragments, the world had forgotten this Mesopotamian king's quest for immortality, his grief over Enkidu's death, even the tale's eerily prescient flood narrative. Holding one of these tablets today, you can still see the scribe's fingerprints in the clay, the hurried corrections where he misspelled a line. Some even bear Ashurbanipal's personal seal, marking them as his private copies. His pride in this library was legendary. One inscription boasts, "I read the artistic script of Sumer and Akkad, masters of tablet lore. I solved complex divisions and multiplications unseen since the antediluvian sages." This wasn't just storage, it was the first known attempt to safeguard collective human thought. Now shift south to Nippur, where archaeologists uncovered a quieter but equally revelatory trove, a scribble school's discarded practice tablets. These aren't epic poems, but ancient homework exercises complete with teachers' corrections. One tablet shows a student struggling to write Enlil, king of all lands, over and over, his wedges growing progressively sloppier until the instructor scrawled, "You're careless." Across the bottom, others contain multiplication tables, legal phrases, even doodles of animals in the margins. Together, they paint a vivid picture of education 4,000 years ago, strict discipline, rote memorization, and the universal struggle of students rushing through assignments. What makes Nippur's tablets extraordinary is their humanity. Between formal texts, scribes wrote personal notes, complaints about bad beer, love spells gone wrong, even a humorous dialogue where a lazy student argues with his teacher. These aren't just artifacts, they're snippets of daily life, proving that across millennia, people haven't really changed. The libraries of Ashurbanipal and Nippur give us more than history. They're bridges to the minds of those who shaped civilization, their voices preserved in fire and clay. Slithering across the sun-baked plains of central Iraq like a giant serpent frozen in time, the Bit Resh Canal remains one of Mesopotamia's most staggering engineering feats, a 50-mile waterway so precisely cut that its path still gleams in satellite images. But this wasn't just irrigation, it was Nebuchadnezzar II's ultimate power play, a liquid highway that turned Babylon into the ancient world's unrivaled superpower. Imagine standing on its banks 2,600 years ago, merchant ships heavy with Lebanese cedar and Arabian spices gliding past, their sails reflected in water so carefully channeled it defied the desert's thirst. The canal didn't just connect the Tigris and Euphrates, it fused empire to ambition, turning barren land into a web of fertile trade routes. What made the Bit Resh revolutionary was its scale. Unlike earlier canals that merely diverted water for farms, this was a coordinated network with locks, spillways, and even sections lined with bitumen-coated bricks to prevent erosion. Babylonian engineers calculated gradients so exact that water flowed uphill in certain segments, using a system of stepped basins that acted like primitive locks. But the real genius lay in its propaganda value. Every mile was stamped with Nebuchadnezzar's name on cuneiform plaques, declaring his dominion over nature itself. One inscription boasts, "I made the desert bloom like the garden of the gods," a not-so-subtle reminder that this king didn't just rule people, he tamed rivers. Then there's the haunting footnote. Recent excavations suggest Jewish captives may have dug its western reaches. After Nebuchadnezzar's armies sacked Jerusalem in 586 before the Common Era, the Bible describes forced labor for exiled Hebrews, a claim supported by distinct construction techniques in certain stretches. These segments lack the precision of Babylonian work, with uneven widths and simpler slopes, as if carved by hands unfamiliar with the land. Yet even here, resilience echoes. Archaeologists found fragments of Israelite pottery embedded in the canal walls, perhaps dropped during grueling work, silent witnesses to a bittersweet legacy where oppression and innovation intertwined. Today, the Bit Resh's ghostly outline tells two stories. From space, its pale scar cuts through modern farms, still directing water millennia later. Ground surveys reveal more. Sections now buried under highways were once lined with shade trees and rest stations for travelers. Nebuchadnezzar didn't just build a canal, he crafted an experience, a royal road of water meant to awe subjects and foreigners alike. As drones map its full route for the first time, we're left with a humbling truth: this wasn't infrastructure. It was liquid theater, proving that in Mesopotamia, even rivers could bow to a king's will. Rising from the flatlands near Baghdad like a sand-scarred sentinel, the Ur-Kurogaltsu Ziggurat defies time with the sheer audacity of its survival. Built by the Kassite king Kurogaltsu I around 1400 years before the Common Era, this stepped giant once anchored a sprawling temple complex dedicated to the storm god Enlil. Today, its crumbling core still looms 170 feet tall, higher than a 15-story building, making it one of the few Mesopotamian ziggurats whose silhouette still pierces the horizon. But what's truly remarkable isn't just its height, it's the secrets buried in its sun-baked bricks. Local legends whisper of a king's ransom hidden within its labyrinthine stairwells. Oral traditions passed down through generations tell of a golden statue of Enlil, swathed in lapis lazuli and hidden beneath the temple's foundations during an ancient invasion. Modern treasure hunters and archaeologists have scoured the site for decades, but the ziggurat guards its mysteries fiercely. In the 1970s, a team using ground-penetrating radar detected an anomalous void near the base, only for subsequent excavations to hit a wall of deliberately collapsed masonry, as if the Kassites had booby-trapped their sacred hoard. Yet the Ziggurat story takes a surreal turn in the 20th century. During the Gulf War, coalition forces repurposed its summit as a makeshift surveillance post, its elevation offering unrivaled views across the Mesopotamian plains. Soldiers scratched graffiti into its ancient bricks, unintentionally adding another layer to its millennia-long legacy as a strategic lookout. Iraqi archaeologists later discovered something chilling: century-old Ottoman rifle cartridges embedded in the upper tiers, proof that every conquering army from antiquity to modern times recognized the tactical advantage of this man-made mountain. But perhaps the most haunting detail lies in the ziggurat's construction. Unlike Ur's meticulously planned tiers, Ur-Kurigaltsu's core is reinforced with something unexpected: fragments of demolished temples from conquered cities, their broken statues and inscribed bricks recycled into the new structure. This wasn't mere pragmatism, it was psychological warfare in stone. Every captured brick turned the ziggurat into a monument of subjugation, forcing defeated enemies to literally uphold their conqueror's glory. Now, as conservationists battle erosion and looters, the ziggurat faces a new threat, not from armies but from neglect. Yet even in decay, it commands respect. On certain mornings when the light slants just right, its shadow stretches across the desert like a sundial's hand, ticking off centuries with silent, sun-baked dignity. This isn't just a ruin, it's a palimpsest of power, its layers holding stories of faith, war, and gold-laced whispers that refuse to fade. Staring up from the dust of northeastern Syria with unsettling intensity, the eye idols of Tel Brak refuse to blink. Unearthed from the ruins of a temple older than the pyramids, these 6,000-year-old figurines, over 5,000 of them, share one hypnotic feature: eyes so large they dominate their tiny bodies, some nearly half their size. Carved from alabaster or bone, their gazes seem to follow you, an effect so unnerving that archaeologists dubbed their discovery site the Eye Temple. But these weren't mere decorations, clutched in the hands of the ancient city's citizens, buried in foundation deposits, even embedded in walls. They hint at a belief system where sight wasn't just a sense, it was sacred. What makes the idols utterly unique is their scale and standardization. Unlike the varied figurines of other Mesopotamian sites, Tel Brak's collection follows a rigid template: minimalist bodies, often just a necklace head and shoulders with colossal, almond-shaped eyes drilled with pinpoint pupils. Some are no bigger than a thumb, others stretch to a foot tall, but the most chilling detail: many show signs of intentional killing, chipped eyes or snapped bases, suggesting rituals where breaking the idol released its power. Were they pleased to watchful gods or vessels designed to hold divine attention? The temple's murals offer clues: frescoes of towering figures with identical, all-seeing eyes, their arms outstretched toward crowds of worshippers holding tiny replicas. Theories spiral. Some scholars argue the idols represented an early form of animation when placed in temple niches and lit by flickering oil lamps. Their drilled pupils would catch the light, creating the illusion of blinking. Others see them as the world's first votive offerings. Commoners who couldn't afford precious metals left these proxy witnesses to eternally plead their case before the gods. But the most tantalizing idea ties them to the 100 Eyes myth later found across Mesopotamia, a celestial being who saw all sins and blessings, inspiring humanity to craft physical eyes as spiritual surveillance cameras. Modern technology reveals even stranger secrets. CT scans show some idols contain hollow channels running from the eye sockets to the base, possibly for pouring libations. Residue analysis detected traces of hallucinogenic compounds on several, hinting at trance rituals where worshippers communed with wide-eyed deities. And in a twist worthy of a detective novel, Recent excavations found a cache buried beneath the temple's threshold, every idol facing outward, as if standing guard against some long-forgotten threat. Tel Brak's silent sentinels challenge everything we assume about early religion. These weren't crude attempts at art, they were precision tools of belief, mass-produced with eerie consistency millennia before factories. Each one is a frozen moment, a plea, a warning, or perhaps a contract between mortal and divine, sealed not with a signature, but with an unblinking gaze that still holds its power after 6,000 years. Standing guard at the gates of ancient Mari for over 38 centuries, the basalt lion has witnessed empires rise and crumble beneath its cracked paws. Carved from volcanic stone around 1800 years before the Common Era, this life-sized sentinel wasn't just decoration, it was a silent enforcer of royal authority. Positioned at the palace entrance, its muscular body and bared teeth greeted visitors with an unspoken warning: cross the king, and the lion's stone jaws might not stay symbolic. But its true power lay in the inscription curling around its base, a promise from the city's ruler that the beast would devour whoever schemes evil against this house. Imagine the psychological weight of stepping past those words, knowing your fate was literally set in stone. Then came Hammurabi. When Babylon's legendary lawgiver conquered Mari in 1759 before the Common Era, his soldiers didn't just sack the palace, they toppled its guardian, smashing the lion's head in a calculated act of dominance. The message was clear: even stone protectors couldn't shield you from Babylon's might. For 3,000 years, the headless lion lay buried, its body slowly sinking into the mud of the Euphrates floodplain, until French archaeologists unearthed it in 1936. What they found was a paradox: the body nearly pristine, its basalt surface still gleaming, but the face erased by Hammurabi's wrath. The modern resurrection sparked a firestorm. In 2005, Syrian conservators made a daring choice. They sculpted a new head, drawing on ancient depictions of Mesopotamian lions to recreate its snarling muzzle and arched mane. Critics called it historical forgery. Defenders argued it restored the statue's original terror. The debate cuts to the heart of archaeology itself. Should we preserve ruins as we find them, frozen in their moment of destruction, or resurrect them to evoke their creator's vision? The new head isn't a perfect replica. Its style leans more Assyrian than Old Babylonian, a deliberate choice to signal modern intervention. Yet when sunlight hits the lion's fresh carved eyes at dawn, casting shadows across the original 3,800-year-old body, the effect is electric, a phantom of Mari's glory stitched together across millennia. Now housed in the Deir ez-Zor Museum, the lion's dual identity tells two stories. The ancient lower half whispers of craftsmanship, each claw and muscle fiber carved by artisans who likely never signed their work. The modern head speaks of our own era's hunger to touch the past, even if it means filling silence with educated guesses. Together, they form a hybrid guardian for the ages, reminding us that history isn't set in stone. It's a conversation between what was lost and what we dare to rebuild. Beneath the windswept dunes of southern Iraq, where the Euphrates once kissed the Persian Gulf, lies a crumbling mound that holds humanity's oldest story, literally. The Eridu Genesis tablets, unearthed from the ruins of a priest's house in what many consider Earth's first city, don't just predate the Bible's flood narrative, they rewrite the origins of storytelling itself. Carved in dense cuneiform around 4,000 years ago, these cracked clay fragments contain a creation myth so eerily familiar it will make your spine tingle. Gods molding humans from clay, a garden of immortality, and a cataclysmic deluge sent to wipe out noisy, bothersome mankind. Sound like something you've heard before, but here's where it gets wild. Unlike later biblical versions, Eridu's flood hero isn't Noah, it's Ziusudra, a pious king who earns eternal life not through blind obedience but by outsmarting the gods. In one fragmented passage, he's warned of the coming disaster not by divine decree, but by eavesdropping on a drunken deity's rant through a reed wall. When the waters rise, he doesn't just build an ark, he saves the breath of civilization, loading his vessel with scribes, artisans, and even the laughter of children. A detail so poetic it shatters any notion of ancient myths as primitive. What's truly groundbreaking is the tablet structure. Modern linguists realize the text isn't prose, it's rhythmically spaced with repeating refrains, making it the world's first epic poem. The scribe even left stage directions in the margins, pauses for dramatic effect, cues to raise or lower the voice. This wasn't just scripture, it was performance art meant to be recited by candlelight to gasping audiences. And that priest's house where they were found, scorch marks on the floor suggest the tablets survived because they were stored in a baker's oven, perhaps hidden during some long-forgotten invasion, their secrets preserved by catastrophe once again. Now zoom in on the creation scene. The gods don't speak worlds into being, they dig. The tablet describes primordial waters being separated with hoes and spades, echoing Eridu's own origins as a marshland settlement where early humans literally carved order from chaos. Even the Garden of the Gods isn't some ethereal paradise, it's a meticulously irrigated date palm grove, a mirror of the agricultural revolution happening outside the temple walls. Yet the most haunting passage describes the aftermath of the flood. Unlike the Bible's rainbow covenant, the Eridu tablets show gods remorseful, even traumatized by their own violence. One deity weeps over the destruction, crying, "I have done evil to my children," while another tries to repopulate the earth by shaping new humans from clay mixed with the flesh of a sacrificed god, a dark twist on the Prometheus myth millennia before the Greeks. Standing in Eridu's ruins today, where the world's first city wall still traces a jagged line against the sky, you realize something profound. These tablets weren't just stories. They were survival tools, psychological anchors for a civilization inventing itself from scratch. When that anonymous priest buried them in his home, he wasn't hiding literature, he was preserving the blueprint of what it means to be human. And 4,000 years later, as scholars painstakingly piece together each fragment, the real miracle isn't that the story survived. It's that we can still hear the echo of that long-dead scribe's stylus, pressing eternity into wet clay one wedge at a time. Stretching across the palace walls of Dur Sharukin like an ancient Imax screen, the Assyrian reliefs of Khorsabad tell stories in stone with a level of detail that would make modern filmmakers envious. These sprawling carvings, commissioned by King Sargon II in the 8th century before the Common Era, transform mere history into something visceral, each panel a freeze frame of empire, every chisel stroke vibrating with propaganda and pride. Imagine running your fingers over the grooves where artisans captured the exact drape of a soldier's fringed cloak, the individual hairs in a warhorse's mane, even the terrified expressions of besieged enemies tumbling from city walls. This wasn't decoration, it was psychological warfare etched into limestone. But the real drama lies in what the reliefs almost lost. When Sargon's dynasty collapsed, invaders methodically attacked the carvings not to loot but to obliterate. Scars crisscrossed the stone where enemy picks gouged out eyes from royal portraits, smashed the hands of deities and defaced symbols of Assyrian power. Yet in their haste, they missed the genius of the medium. The deeper narrative layers, tribute processions, siege engines, even scenes of artisans building the palace itself, were carved in such low relief that sand and time buried them rather than destroying them. When French archaeologist Paul-Émile Botta rediscovered the palace in 1843, he found entire panels preserved under wind-blown silt, their pigments still clinging to the stone after 27 centuries. Zoom in on one infamous panel, the Lachish Room. Here, Sargon's son Sennacherib immortalized his sack of a rebellious Judean city with chilling precision. Archers advance in lockstep, their bows drawn. Prisoners beg on their knees as scribes tally spoils. But look closer, Assyrian engineers are shown dismantling the city's walls with pickaxes identical to those found at the actual archaeological site in Israel. Even the tree species match the Judean foothills. This wasn't generic victory art, it was forensic documentation, a boast that every leaf and brick was recorded accurately. The irony, those same invaders who tried to erase Sargon's face left us clues to their own identity. The chisel marks follow distinct patterns, Medes attacked divine symbols, Babylonians targeted royal insignia, allowing historians to reconstruct the palace's final hours. And in a twist worthy of a spy novel, some vandalized sections reveal older carvings beneath, proving Sargon himself erased predecessors to insert his own legacy. The palace walls weren't just telling stories, they were a palimpsest of power struggles, each erasure writing new history even as it tried to bury the old. Today, as laser scans reveal hidden underdrawings and crushed mineral pigments, vibrant blues from Afghanistan, reds from the Mediterranean, we're learning these reliefs were originally as colorful as any modern movie. Traces of gold leaf suggest sunlight would have made the walls shimmer like living tapestries. To walk these corridors now is to step into the world's first epic film, where kings were directors, artisans were cinematographers, and stone itself was the projector screen. The reliefs didn't just survive destruction, they outsmarted it, rewriting our understanding of how empires weaponized art to make history unforgettable. Baked into a palm-sized clay tablet over 2,600 years ago, the Babylonian map of the world isn't just the oldest known map, it's a mind-bending collision of mythology, science, and imperial ego. At first glance, it looks like something a child might scratch into wet sand, a crude circle labeled Salt Sea, surrounding a cluster of rectangles representing Babylon and its neighboring cities. But lean closer, and this tiny artifact reveals itself as a revolutionary act, humanity's first attempt to shrink the infinite cosmos into something you could hold in your hand. What's astonishing isn't just the map's existence, but its layered genius, the outer ring. That's the cosmic ocean, the primordial waters of chaos from which the Babylonians believed all creation emerged. The 7 triangular islands jutting inward, mythical realms where scorpion men and winged bulls dwelled, places no mortal could visit and return sane. Yet at the map's heart lies something shockingly practical. The Euphrates River sliced diagonally through Babylon's urban sprawl, its course matching modern satellite images with eerie precision. Even more revelatory, tiny cuneiform labels dotting Assyria and Urartu, modern Armenia, list exact travel distances, proving this wasn't just symbolic art. It was a working document, likely used by royal messengers or traders navigating the known world. The real twist comes when you flip the tablet. On its back, a text describes these distant lands not as blank spaces, but as specific challenges. Here, there is no sunlight, marks the frozen north, while here, birds with 2 heads sing death songs, warns of southern marshes. This wasn't ignorance, it was honest cartography, admitting, here be mysteries, centuries before medieval maps copied the phrase. Recent spectral imaging revealed erased markings where the scribe initially placed Elam too close to Babylon, then corrected it after consulting traders. That fragile moment, when myth began yielding to measurement, captures the birth of scientific mapping, yet the map's true power lies in what it doesn't show. Egypt absent, Greece nowhere. The entire Mediterranean world is ignored, reflecting Babylon's worldview, a universe with themselves as the literal center. The tablet even positions the underworld as a mirror image kingdom beneath Babylon, accessible through temple cellars. This wasn't geography as we know it, it was cosmology disguised as cartography, a masterstroke of propaganda insisting all roads and afterlives led back to Mesopotamia. Today, as scholars decode its cuneiform legends using 3D scanners, they've found coordinates aligning with real astronomical events. One cluster of dots matches the solar eclipse of 623 before the Common Era, suggesting the map doubled as a celestial calendar. Others theorize the triangular islands correspond to constellations used for navigation. Whatever its purpose, this little slab of clay forever changed how humans see their place in the universe, not as isolated specks, but as storytellers who could fold infinity between their fingers and say, "Here." This is the world. Buried in the scorched earth of southern Iraq, the Ubaid lizardmen stare up from the dust with slitted eyes that refuse to blink. These 7,000-year-old figurines, unearthed from the ruins of a civilization predating Sumer by millennia, aren't just oddities, they're enigmas carved in clay. With elongated heads, almond-shaped reptilian eyes, and human bodies cradling infants or clutching staffs, they look less like ritual objects and more like visitors from some primordial fever dream. And that's exactly why they've ignited one of archaeology's fiercest modern debates. Were these shamanistic symbols or proof that ancient minds grappled with something otherworldly? Start with the conventional explanation. Dr. Amina al-Rawi of the University of Baghdad has spent decades studying these statues. The postures are deliberate, she notes, pointing to figurines with shoulders back and chests thrust forward, a stance mimicking Ubaid clan leaders depicted in later art. Their lizard-like features, she argues, echo the Mesopotamian association between reptiles and healing. See these grooves on the necks? They match ceremonial body paint patterns still used by Marsh Arab shamans today. These weren't aliens, they were medicine people wearing ritual guises, perhaps channeling the wisdom of the marsh's snakes and lizards. But then there's the fringe. Enter Dr. Klaus Werner, a maverick archaeologist who's spent years mapping the figurines' distribution. Their placement defies logic, he insists. We've found clusters buried exactly 18 hand spans apart in perfect circles, with magnetic anomalies at the centers. And look at the skull proportions. He pulls up 3D scans showing cranial volumes 20% larger than human norms, with tapered jawlines lacking true wear. Either the Ubaid were sculpting beings with radically different biology, or they were documenting something they couldn't explain. The most unsettling finds come from Tel el-Ubaid's shrine pit, a sealed chamber packed with 40 lizardmen figurines, all facing a central podium where a larger statue once stood. Carbon residue suggests the podium held an oil lamp, its light flickering across the figure's polished obsidian eyes to create an uncanny shimmering effect. Nearby tablets describe the ones who came before, instructors who descended in vessels of reed to teach agriculture and star lore. Modern tools deepen the mystery. X-rays reveal some figurines contain hollow chambers in their torsos. One still held traces of a psychoactive brew. Spectrography matched their greenish clay to a rare deposit 12 miles upstream, yet hundreds were found near the Persian Gulf coast. How did they travel? Why, whether you see shamanic visions or ancient astronaut theories, the lizardmen's real power lies in their stubborn silence. They refuse to fit neatly into our categories, forcing us to confront how little we understand about the dawn of civilization. As the sun sets over the excavation site, casting long shadows from their upturned faces, one thing becomes clear: these aren't just artifacts, they're Rorschach tests in clay, reflecting our own hunger or fear of the unknown. Buried beneath the ruins of a Nippur scribble school, a simple rod of black basalt rewrote our understanding of ancient precision. The Nippur cubit, carved in 2650 before the Common Era, wasn't just a measuring stick, it was the Rosetta Stone of Mesopotamian engineering, a master key that unlocked the mathematical secrets of ziggurats, canals, and even distant pyramids. At first glance, it seems unremarkable. A slender stone bar just over 19.5 inches long, marked with meticulous cuneiform divisions. But this humble tool standardized an empire's architecture, ensuring every brick in Ur, every column in Babylon adhered to sacred proportions. What's staggering is the cubit's cosmic logic. The rod isn't arbitrarily sized. Its length derives from the average width of a man's palm plus forearm, multiplied by a factor linked to the solar year. Archaeologists found tablets at Nippur proving architects used it to calculate everything from temple heights, always exact multiples of 7 cubits, to canal widths divisible by 3 for optimal water flow. But here's where it gets eerie. When Egyptologist Flinders Petrie measured the Great Pyramid's base in the 19th century, he discovered its sides were precisely 365 cubits long, 1 cubit for each day of the year. Not just any cubit, though. The Egyptian royal cubit measured 20.62 inches, the Nippur cubit 20.42, a difference barely wider than a barley grain. How two civilizations separated by deserts arrived at near-identical standards remains one of archaeology's great puzzles. Some argue it's coincidence. Human anatomy naturally suggests similar measurements. Others point to cuneiform tablets describing starfarers who brought building secrets from the Western lands. The truth may lie in trade. Lapis lazuli from Afghanistan and cedar from Lebanon moved along routes connecting Mesopotamia and Egypt as early as 3000 before the Common Era. Did builders exchange not just goods but blueprints? Modern laser scans reveal the cubit's true brilliance. Its surface bears microscopic scoring at precise intervals, not just whole units but divisions down to 0.04 of an inch, allowing calculations impossible with simple knotted ropes. When researchers applied these increments to surviving ziggurat plans, they found perfect alignments with solstice sunrises, proving the cubit wasn't just about length, it encoded celestial mechanics in stone. Now consider this, the same Nippur scribble school that guarded the cubit also housed tablets with advanced geometry problems, including early Pythagorean triples. One exercise calculates a ramp's angle using ratios matching the Great Pyramid's slope. Coincidence or evidence of a Bronze Age scientific network, its threads frayed by time? The cubit whispers of a forgotten dialogue between civilizations, where measurement wasn't just practical, it was sacred, a language spoken in temples and tombs across the ancient world. Today, as digital reconstructions show how the cubit's units perfectly grid out everything from Assyrian palaces to Indus Valley cities, we're left with a humbling thought. Before currency, before alphabets, humanity's first global currency may have been the humble cubit, a stone rod that built the world one precise brick at a time. Etched into the limestone walls of Sennacherib's palace with chilling precision, the siege of Lachish reliefs don't just depict history, they trap it mid-scream. Stretching 90 feet across the throne room, these panels are the ancient world's first war documentary, frame by gruesome frame showing Assyria's brutal 21-day conquest of Judah's second city in 701 before the Common Era. But what makes them extraordinary isn't just their scale, it's their forensic accuracy. Zoom in on the chaos. Jewish defenders hurl torches from the walls, their faces contorted in terror as Assyrian sappers pry apart the city's bricks with crowbars. Look closer still, and you'll spot the exact moment a Judahite officer plunges from the ramparts, his tasseled cloak flaring as he falls toward a pile of his slaughtered comrades. This isn't propaganda, it's cold, calculated humiliation carved in stone. Then came the modern twist. When archaeologists excavated Lachish itself in the 1930s, they unearthed a nightmare mirroring the reliefs. A mass grave held 1,500 skeletons, many with skulls crushed by blunt objects matching the spiked maces shown in Assyrian carvings. The city's gate still bore scorch marks from the fires Sennacherib's scribes had smugly recorded. And then, the smoking gun, a cache of bronze arrowheads lodged in the fortress walls, their distinctive leaf-shaped blades identical to those clutched by Assyrian archers in the reliefs. Even the slope of the siege ramp outside Lachish's walls matched the palace carvings inch for inch, proving the artists had either witnessed the carnage or worked from battlefield sketches. But the real revelation lay in what the reliefs left out. The Lachish excavation uncovered pits filled with charred olive pits and grain evidence the city held out longer than Sennacherib admitted, forcing his troops to starve them into submission. The palace panels show triumphant Assyrians flaying prisoners alive, yet hidden beneath one victim's carved agony, conservators found chisel marks where the original artist had sketched a Judahite child clinging to the man's leg. Sennacherib apparently ordered the detail erased, unwilling to humanize his enemies. Now flip the perspective. Inside the ruins of Lachish's last stand, archaeologists found a broken seal stamped with the Hebrew name Shebna, likely the city's doomed governor mentioned in Isaiah's prophecies. Nearby lay a desperate final message scratched onto a potsherd. "We are watching for the fire signals of Azekah, but they do not appear." Azekah was Lachish's sister fortress 30 miles north. Translation: no one was coming to help. The relief's most haunting detail, Assyrian scribes tallying loot, not gold or silver, but people. Each captive's hands are bound with cords that snake into a clerk's grip as he notches their fate onto a ledger. Modern censuses suggest 30,000 were deported, their descendants likely among the lost tribes of Israel. Yet in a twist of poetic justice, climate data reveals Assyria's victory came at a cost. Tree rings from the era show a catastrophic drought began within months of Lachish's fall, as if the land itself revolted against the bloodshed. Standing in London's British Museum today, where the reliefs now loom under sterile lights, you can almost hear the chisels that carved them, not just documenting history but weaponizing it. Every stroke was designed to scream across centuries, resistance is futile. Yet Lachish's rebels got the last word. Buried in the dust at their city's gates, archaeologists found one final act of defiance: a shattered Assyrian helmet, its crest stomped flat by some anonymous Judahite sandal before the walls came down. Stretching like ancient asphalt across Mesopotamia's floodplains, the Roman III dynasty roads weren't just dirt paths, they were engineering marvels that would put modern highways to shame. Built 4,100 years ago under King Shulgi's reign, these brick-paved arteries connected to Nippur and beyond, their surfaces so precisely engineered that puddles never formed, even during violent spring rains. Picture walking these routes in their prime, glazed bricks baked to a glassy sheen, arranged in herringbone patterns for traction, flanked by drainage ditches deep enough to swallow a man's calf. But the real genius lay beneath a layered foundation of crushed limestone and bitumen that flexed under chariot wheels without cracking, a technique the Romans wouldn't rediscover until their famed via appear millennia later. Recent excavations revealed their secret: the roads weren't flat. They arched slightly like a turtle's back, a subtle camber that sent rainwater cascading into side gutters. Archaeologists pouring water on reconstructed sections watched it race off exactly as designed, proving these weren't just trails but hydrological masterpieces. One stretch near Nippur even features an early roundabout, a circular plaza where 3 roads converged, its bricks radiating outward like sunbeams to direct traffic flow. Cuneiform tablets boast of messengers covering the 200-mile to Nippur route in just 36 hours, thanks to roadside way stations stocked with fresh horses and clay canteens of beer. But these roads were more than infrastructure, they were declarations of power. Every brick bore Shulgi's stamp, forcing travelers to literally walk on the king's name. Satellite imagery shows they ignored natural obstacles, plowing straight through hills rather than bending, a flex of imperial might. Yet they also birthed unexpected connections. Alongside official couriers, archaeologists found footprints of barefoot children and worn sandal grooves from merchant caravans, the ancient equivalent of rest stop graffiti. One brick even preserves a dog's paw print, frozen mid-stride 4 millennia ago. The cruel irony: these roads outlasted the empire that built them. When the Roman III dynasty collapsed, scavengers stole the glazed bricks for homes, leaving the limestone underlayers to fossilize. Today, what remains isn't the grand paving but the ghostly impressions they left: parallel ruts sunk deep into the earth, tracing routes that once pulsed with the footsteps of priests, soldiers, and traders carrying lapis lazuli from Afghanistan to the docks of Ur. To walk those ruts now is to tread the world's first highway system, where every groove whispers of an empire that believed even the mud beneath its feet deserved perfection. Glinting in the dim light of a Baghdad museum vault, the silver vase of Enki's temple doesn't just hold wine, it holds a revolution. Crafted 2,500 years before the Common Era, this hammered artifact is more than a ritual vessel. It's the Rosetta Stone of literary history, its belly inscribed with the first words ever attributed to a named author. Princess Enheduanna, High Priestess of Ur and daughter of history's first empire builder, Sargon of Akkad. Picture her hands cradling this very vase during moonlit ceremonies, pouring libations to Enki, god of wisdom, while her own words, Earth's oldest poetry, swirled in the liquid like sacred ink. The scenes chasing each other around the vase's surface tell a story that predates Homer by 17 centuries. Bull men duel with heroes amidst stylized waves, their muscles tense under silver that still bears the fingerprints of its maker. A procession of priestesses carries offerings toward a temple gate, their robes rendered in such detail you can count the woven fringes. But the true marvel hides in the cuneiform band encircling the rim, a dedication not just to Enki, but to the lady who made the gods tremble with her verses. This was Enheduanna's signature, a boast so bold it echoes across millennia. I, a woman, gave voice to the divine. Survival wasn't guaranteed. When looters ransacked Baghdad's National Museum in 2003 during the Iraq War's chaos, they shattered display cases and scattered treasures to the winds. The silver vase should have vanished forever. Precious metal is always the first casualty of plunder. But here's where fate intervened. A quick-thinking curator had hidden it weeks earlier inside a crate labeled Irrigation Reports, stashing it beneath a pile of mundane administrative files in a dusty basement office. The ruse worked so well that when investigators finally recovered it, they found the vase resting atop a stack of 2004 agricultural surveys untouched. Modern imaging reveals even deeper secrets. X-rays show the vase had been repaired in antiquity, tiny silver stitches near its base where some long-dead artisan mended a crack, likely after it was dropped during a frenzied ritual. Spectroscopy traces its metal to Anatolian mines, proving trade networks stretched farther than we imagined. And those inscriptions, originally gilded with electrum, so when torchlight hit them during ceremonies, they'd blaze like captured lightning. But the real power lies in what Enheduanna's words reveal. Her poetry, pressed into the vase's surface, doesn't just praise gods, it argues with them. In one stanza, she accuses the moon god Nana of neglecting her temple. In another, she claims the goddess Inanna roared like a dragon through her verses. This wasn't submissive prayer, it was dialogue, the birth of literature as a wrestling match between mortal and divine. Holding this vase today, actually holding it, you're gripping the moment humanity realized words could outlive flesh, that a priestess's plea to the cosmos might echo when her bones were dust. And here's the kicker, we almost missed it. Without that curator's desperate deception, without the sheer luck of looters overlooking a cardboard box, we might never have known Enheduanna's name. Yet somehow, against war and time and greed, this silver vessel endured, still whispering its secret. Write fiercely enough and eternity will listen. Buried beneath the floor of an ancient Sumerian temple at Tel Asmar, 12 stone figures stand frozen in a silent vigil that has lasted nearly 5,000 years. The Tel Asmar hoard isn't just a collection of statues, it's a congregation of the wide-eyed and the watchful, their oversized irises locked in an eternal gaze that seems to pierce through time itself. Carved from gypsum around 2,900 years before the Common Era, these figures range from foot-tall worshippers to a towering 3-foot priest, each one rendered with angular simplicity yet radiating an uncanny presence. But it's their eyes glistening with inlaid black limestone pupils that catch the light like living obsidian, that hook your soul and refuse to let go. When archaeologists unearthed them in the 1930s, the statues weren't scattered haphazardly. They were arranged in a perfect circle, their bodies angled inward as if caught mid-ceremony, their gazes fixed on an empty center. And there, in that sacred space, lay the chilling clue, a clean, cylindrical hole drilled straight down into the temple's foundation. This was no accident, it was a kill hole, a deliberate act of ritual violence against the divine. Scholars believe the statues were murdered not by invaders, but by their own worshippers, perhaps during a moment of theological upheaval when old gods were being forsaken. The hole, a conduit to the underworld, a burial wound meant to drain the statue's spiritual power before they were carefully laid to rest. Modern imaging reveals even darker details. Scorch marks around the hole suggest flaming oil was poured inside, while residue tests detected traces of barley and poppy offerings to appease whatever spirits might linger. Some statues bear faint cracks along their necks, as if ceremonially decapitated before interment, yet the care taken in their arrangement speaks of reverence, not rage. This wasn't mindless destruction, it was a sacred termination, a goodbye ritual for gods who had outlived their usefulness. The hoard's symbolism only deepens the mystery. The largest figure, thought to represent the god Abu, clutches a tiny cup likely for libations, but its surface is carved with undulating waves, a motif later found in Babylonian flood myths. Another statue, a woman with braided hair, holds her hands in a gesture still used by Marsh Arab midwives during childbirth. These weren't generic idols, they were specialists, each embodying a facet of life the Sumerians couldn't control. To kill them was to admit that even divinity had limits. Today, standing before the hoard in Baghdad's National Museum, you can't escape their eyes. They don't blink, they don't waver, they simply watch as they've watched since the dawn of cities, bearing witness to humanity's oldest habit, creating gods, then burying them when we outgrow their shadows. And perhaps that's the real power of the Tel Asmar hoard, not in what it says about ancient faith, but in how it mirrors our own restless hunger to shape the divine, only to shatter it when the world changes. The statues knew this truth 5 millennia ago. Their eyes tell us they're still waiting for us to learn it. Hidden for centuries beneath the ruins of Nimrod's palaces, then nearly lost forever to modern conflict, the Nimrud ivories are masterpieces of survival. These delicate panels, carved from elephant tusks by Phoenician artisans 2,800 years ago, once adorned the furniture of Assyria's elite: throne legs, bed frames, even vanity mirrors. Imagine running your fingers over their surfaces, the curve of a sphinx's wing rendered in such detail you can count individual feathers, or lotus flowers so lifelike their petals seem to tremble when candlelight flickers across the ivory's creamy grain. But what's truly astonishing isn't just their beauty, it's the odyssey they endured to reach us. The ivory's journey reads like an archaeological thriller. Originally looted from Phoenician cities like Tyre and Sidon as war trophies, they were brought to Nimrud as spoils of Assyria's conquests. There, they lay buried for millennia until British archaeologist Max Mallowan, husband of Agatha Christie, unearthed them in the 1950s. But their greatest test came in 2014 when ISIS militants stormed Mosul, just 20 miles from Nimrod's ruins. As the world watched in horror, terrorists bulldozed ancient temples and torched manuscripts, yet the ivories had already vanished. Iraqi archaeologists, anticipating the violence, had smuggled them out in unmarked trucks weeks earlier, hiding them in a secret compartment beneath Baghdad's National Museum. Their rescue was a miracle of quick thinking. Curators had wrapped each panel in acid-free paper, cushioned them with shock-absorbing foam, and tucked them into custom-built crates disguised as agricultural exports. X-rays later revealed why the risk was worth it. Beneath the surface carvings, some ivories still held traces of original gold leaf and lapis lazuli inlay, proof they once shimmered like fragments of sunlight. But the real magic lies in their cultural fusion. The sphinxes aren't pure Assyrian. They have the slender, androgynous faces of Phoenician art, their Egyptian-inspired headdresses clashing with Mesopotamian motifs. One panel shows a scene straight from Homer, warriors in Greek-style armor battling sea monsters, a nod to trade routes stretching across the Mediterranean. Another depicts a woman playing a lyre beside a palm tree, her dress embroidered with spirals found only in Cypriot textiles. These weren't just decorations, they were diplomatic messages in ivory, proving Assyria's court was a crossroads of civilizations. Today, the ivories are emerging from shadow. Conservationists using 3D scanning discovered tiny chisel marks on their back signatures of the artisans who carved them. Some are Phoenician letters, others are coded symbols, perhaps workshop trademarks. And in a twist that still baffles historians, a few panels bear cuneiform receipts for their purchase, including one that lists payment in 7 jars of honey and 2 live peacocks. Yet the ivory's greatest lesson is one of resilience. When ISIS detonated explosives at Nimrud in 2016, they unknowingly cracked open a hidden chamber beneath the palace, one that held a final cache of ivories missed during the evacuation. These last survivors, scarred by heat and shrapnel, are now being painstakingly restored. Their scars aren't hidden, they're displayed as part of their story, proof that even when empires fall and fanatics rage, beauty has a way of enduring. To stand before them now is to witness not just art, but defiance, a whisper from the past that refuses to be silenced. Beneath the windswept dunes of southern Iraq, a crumbling arch of sun-baked bricks quietly redefines the history of engineering. The Gersu Bridge, buried for millennia beneath the lost city of Ningersu, isn't just ancient, it's a revolutionary stroke of ingenuity from 4,000 years ago, recently confirmed as the world's oldest known bridge. But this wasn't merely a practical crossing. It was a sacred pivot point where architecture and ritual intertwined, redirecting entire processions of worshippers like celestial traffic control. Recent LiDAR scans peel back the desert's veil, revealing the bridge's true brilliance. Its curved spine, constructed from precisely fitted mud bricks sealed with bitumen, arcs over what was once a bustling canal. But the scan's ghostly blue contours expose something astonishing. The bridge doesn't run straight, it bends at a deliberate 15-degree angle, forcing anyone crossing it to pivot northwest toward the Temple district. This was no accident. Cuneiform tablets found nearby describe the divine detour, a mandatory loop in ceremonial marches meant to mimic the path of Ningersu's patron god as he turned the heavens during creation. Processions carrying golden statues of deities would have felt the shift beneath their feet, their route choreographed by invisible hands 4 millennia ago. The construction techniques defy expectations. Each brick bears the fingerprint of Sumerian hydraulic science, layered atop a foundation of woven reed mats, the same shock-absorbing design modern engineers use in earthquake zones. The arch's keystone, long thought to be a Roman innovation, here sits perfectly balanced, its weight distributed along grooves carved to channel floodwaters away from the abutments. But the real marvel is in the shadows. LiDAR detected subterranean channels beneath the bridge's footings, part of a system that allowed priests to stage theatrical effects. Imagine approaching the bridge at dusk during the spring festival, only for hidden sluice gates to open, making the canal waters suddenly surge and swirl as if animated by divine will. Yet the bridge's discovery almost didn't happen. For decades, archaeologists mistook its remains for a collapsed city wall. It wasn't until drone footage captured its distinctive curve, mirrored in temple relief showing gods crossing the crescent path, that the truth emerged. Now, as conservators stabilize its fragile bricks, they've uncovered tiny votive figurines embedded in the mortar, likely placed by workers as blessings. Even more poignant are the footprints fossilized in one brick, likely a child's, pressed into the wet clay during construction, a fleeting human moment preserved beneath the weight of history. Standing on the Gersu Bridge today, you're not just walking on old bricks, You're tracing the footsteps of priests who turned civil engineering into a spiritual act, who understood that even something as mundane as crossing water could be made sacred. The bridge didn't just connect two riverbanks, it spanned the gap between earth and heaven, and in its graceful arc we see the birth of an idea. That infrastructure could be more than functional. It could be a prayer, tucked into the belts of Mesopotamian merchants, scribes, and kings alike. Cylinder seals were more than just accessories, they were miniature power plants of identity, carved from stone yet capable of shaping empires. Imagine a world before fingerprints, before signatures, where trust was literally rolled into wet clay. These thumb-sized tubes, etched with intricate scenes and inscriptions, became the ultimate security system for everything from royal decrees to personal love letters. Press one into a clay tablet, give it a roll, and voila, you've left behind a raised impression as unique as a modern barcode, only far more beautiful. Step into the workshop of a seal carver, where the air hums with the sound of copper chisels tapping against lapis lazuli or hematite. Each seal took months to craft, its cylindrical surface transformed into a storytelling canvas no wider than your pinky. One might show a hero grappling with a lion, echoing the epic of Gilgamesh. Another, a goddess flanked by worshippers, her divine status clear from the horned crown atop her head. But here's the twist, these weren't just pretty pictures. The carver's precision had to be flawless, because a single misplaced groove could render the entire seal useless for authentication. A scribe's livelihood or a king's authority depended on those tiny, walling details. Now picture the seal in action. A tax collector arrives at a farmer's door, clay tablet in hand. The farmer pays his barley dues, and with a quick roll of the collector's seal, the transaction is locked into history. The raised impression acts as a tamper-proof receipt. Any attempt to alter the numbers would crack the clay, exposing the fraud. Even romance relied on these stone guarantors. Excavations at Ur revealed a clay envelope containing a love poem, its surface stamped with a seal depicting entwined lovers. Breaking the seal to read the message was like tearing open a wax seal on a medieval letter, a private moment made sacred by the act of breaking trust. The real genius of cylinder seals lay in their adaptability. Merchants used them to mark cargo crates, their distinctive rolls proving ownership across vast trade networks. Kings pressed them into treaties, embedding their divine authority into every word. Some seals even pulled double duty as amulets, their carvings invoking protective deities. Over time, styles evolved. Akkadian seals boasted cinematic battle scenes, while Babylonian ones favored elaborate mythic tableaus. Yet all shared a common language of symbolism, where every figure, every gesture carried coded meaning. Modern technology has unlocked even deeper secrets. Microscopic analysis reveals that some seals were so finely detailed. Their impressions included microscopic signatures, deliberate imperfections, or hidden marks known only to their owners. Others show where patterns suggesting they were passed down through generations, their grooves softened by centuries of use. And in a breathtaking discovery, 3D scans of seals from different cities revealed something astonishing. Identical carvings appearing hundreds of miles apart, evidence of ancient franchise systems where branch offices used replicas of the king's personal seal. Yet for all their ubiquity, cylinder seals nearly vanished from history. When parchment replaced clay tablets, these stone rollers became obsolete, scattered by time until archaeologists began piecing together their stories. Today, holding one is like gripping an ancient universal key, a tiny object that once unlocked warehouses, sealed vows, and even decided court cases, their legacy. The very concept of a signature, the idea that identity can be compressed into something you carry in your palm. The next time you tap your credit card or scan your phone, remember, the Mesopotamians invented the art of the secure transaction, one delicate roll at a time. Buried at the edges of Babylonian farmlands, the Kudru stones stood as silent sentinels of ownership and vengeance. These weren't just boundary markers, they were legal contracts chiseled into gleaming black diorite, dripping with divine threats that would make even the toughest modern loan shark blush. Picture a farmer in 1200 before the Common Era, watching as priests anointed one of these stones with sacred oil before planting it into his field's edge. The inscription, a deed confirming his right to the land, followed by a litany of curses so creative they'd put horror writers to shame. May the god Adad strike the thief's fields with lightning. May Ninkarak fill his bowels with tumors. May his children's children wither like unwatered barley. This wasn't just bureaucracy, it was psychological warfare in stone. The genius of the Kuduru system lay in its dual power. On one side, precise surveys carved in cuneiform listed measurements down to the cubit, often verified by royal inspectors. Flip the stone and you'd find a who's who of the Mesopotamian pantheon, their symbols: a crescent moon for Sin, a lightning bolt for Adad, arrayed like a divine firing squad ready to enforce the contract. Modern laser scans reveal something even more cunning. Some stones were hollowed out at the base, allowing them to be filled with ritual offerings. Break the agreement, and you weren't just stealing from a neighbor, you were robbing the gods themselves. Fast forward to today, and the Kuduru's legacy pulses through our courtrooms and back alleys alike. Those dramatic curses, they're the ancient ancestors of modern lien notices and restraining orders, where legal language still carries echoes of supernatural threat. And let's not forget the mafia's horse-head-in-the-bed tactic, a crude echo of the Kuduru's unspoken message: cross this line and the cosmic hitmen come knocking. But here's the twist that's got historians and lawyers debating. Some Kudurus include rewards for honorable neighbors, like, may Ishtar bless the one who protects this marker with 7 healthy sons. Positive reinforcement amidst the terror, proof that Babylonians understood the carrot and stick approach millennia before management consultants patented it. Now peer closer at the stone's artistry. The finest Kudurus, like the one held in the Louvre, are miniature galaxies of symbolism. Scorpions writhe beneath chariot wheels, a warning to trespassers, while goddesses pour endless streams of water, blessings for the loyal. One even shows a serpent coiled around the boundary line, an early version of "you're in over your head." Yet the Kuduru's true power was its indestructibility. Unlike papyrus deeds that could burn or clay tablets that might crumble, these stones were built to outlast empires, and they did. When the Elamites sacked Babylon in 1200 before the Common Era, they melted down gold and burned libraries, but the Kudurus stayed put, their curses still potent long after the kings who commissioned them were dust. Today, as satellite imaging helps archaeologists rediscover lost Kudurus buried beneath Iraqi wheat fields, we're left with a chilling realization. In a world where digital contracts can vanish with a keystroke, there's something eerily reassuring about a promise carved in stone. The Kuduru didn't just mark property, it marked the moment humanity realized that for justice to endure, it needed teeth sharper than any law and gods meaner than any enforcer. Carved from a single block of translucent alabaster so fine it glows when backlit, the Uruk vase isn't just an ancient artifact, it's a frozen moment of Mesopotamia's spiritual and political power, captured in stone 3,200 years before the Common Era. Standing over 3 feet tall, its surface unfolds in 4 meticulously carved registers, each tier a chapter in a visual epic celebrating the sacred marriage between king and god. At the base, wavy lines symbolizing the life-giving Euphrates nourished stalks of barley and date palms. Above them, a procession of rams and ewes marches in perfect rhythm, their fleeces textured so realistically you can almost feel their wool. But it's the top tier that stops historians mid-breath, a nude priest presenting a basket of sacred offerings to a robed king, who stands before the temple goddess Inanna, her figure emerging from a gateway of towering reed bundles. This isn't decoration, it's a divine coronation, a stone screenplay of the moment earthly power met heavenly mandate. Look closer, and the vase whispers secrets that ripple across millennia. The priest's nudity wasn't accidental, it signified ritual purity, a shedding of worldly trappings before the gods. The king's flounced robe mirrors actual textiles found in royal graves, its fringe pattern matching descriptions from cuneiform tablets. Even the reed bundled columns framing Inanna aren't artistic license. Archaeologists have found their physical counterparts at Uruk's ruins, massive ceremonial doorways coated in bitumen and crushed marble to mimic the vase's shimmering stone. Now here's where the plot thickens. Those stacked registers each seem more celestial than the last, bear an uncanny resemblance to another famous tower. Biblical scholars have long debated the origins of the Tower of Babel's story, but the Uruk vase offers a tantalizing clue. Its tiered structure mirrors early Mesopotamian ziggurats, with the king's encounter at the summit paralleling the biblical tale's thematic core, humanity's audacious reach toward the divine. Even the vase's original context hints at this connection. Discovered buried near the ruins of Uruk's White Temple, a ziggurat that once scraped the sky, it may have been part of rituals performed at dizzying heights where priests literally stepped between earth and heaven. But the real shocker came in 2019 when spectral imaging revealed ghostly traces of pigment. The vase wasn't always alabaster pale. Its barley stalks blazed gold, the ram's fleeces bore red ochre stripes, and Inanna's gown once shimmered in lapis blue. This was no mere vessel. It was a psychedelic roadmap of the cosmos designed to dazzle worshippers into spiritual submission. Yet the most provocative detail hides in plain sight. That basket of offerings the priest presents, it's overflowing not with grain or precious metals, but with the same reeds used to build ziggurats. The message is undeniable. The king doesn't just receive gifts, he's given the very materials of cosmic ambition, the tools to bridge mortal and divine. In the vase's gleaming surface, we see the birth of an idea so powerful it still haunts us, that human hands might build stairways to heaven, and that such arrogance or devotion could either elevate an empire or bring it crashing down. Today, as the vase sits in Baghdad's National Museum, its cracks carefully stabilized with reversible epoxy, it challenges us to reconsider the roots of our oldest myths. Perhaps the Tower of Babel wasn't just a cautionary tale. It was a distorted memory of real ziggurats, their stairways thronged with priests bearing offerings, their summits brushing the realm of gods. The Uruk vase doesn't just depict a ritual, it captures the precise moment humanity looked up from the mudflats of the Euphrates and dared to imagine touching the sky. These 30 marvels of Mesopotamia aren't just relics, they're time travelers, carrying whispers of the world's first cities, laws, and legends into the present. That ziggurat you saw earlier, its step design echoes in modern stadiums and concert halls. The laws Hammurabi etched into stone, their spirit lives on in courtrooms today where justice still balances scales. Even the stars you check in your horoscope, those 12 signs, were first mapped by Babylonian priests tracking Jupiter's path. Every brick, every cuneiform stroke, every canal curve was a blueprint humanity still follows, often without realizing it. Look around. The next time you walk a city grid, thank the Mesopotamians who invented urban planning. When you sign a contract, remember the cylinder seals that rolled trust into clay. That bridge you cross, its arch owes a debt to the Gersu engineers who turned geometry into grace. These wonders didn't just survive, they evolved, hiding in plain sight as the bones of our modern world. Yet their resilience has limits. War, looting, and neglect gnaw at their edges. The Ishtar Gate's blues fade a little more each decade. The Marsh Arab's reed houses battle droughts. The Uruk vase bears hairline cracks no conservation can fully heal. These survivors have weathered sandstorms and sieges, but the greatest threat isn't time, it's indifference. So here's the question they've carried across 5,000 years. They've outlasted empires, outwitted oblivion, but will they outlast us? The answer lies in what we do next. Visit them, champion them, or simply remember their stories, because Mesopotamia's greatest wonder wasn't its bricks or gold. It was the stubborn idea that creation could outlive its creators. And that's a legacy worth fighting for. Amid the scars left by war and time, a quiet revolution is unfolding across Mesopotamia's ancient landscapes, one fueled by lasers, love, and sheer stubbornness. In Mosul, where ISIS once bulldozed Assyrian reliefs with sledgehammers, Iraqi archaeologists now sift through rubble with tweezers, piecing together shattered lion-headed gods like the world's most consequential jigsaw puzzle. Meanwhile, drones hum over Ur's ziggurat, capturing millimeter-perfect 3D scans that will outlast the fragile bricks below. This isn't just preservation, it's resurrection, blending cutting-edge tech with techniques as old as the ruins themselves. Take the Mosul Museum's stolen ivories, those delicate masterpieces smuggled to safety before ISIS could reduce them to ash. Conservators are now using photogrammetry to recreate missing fragments, matching fracture lines with algorithms originally designed for facial recognition. One team even discovered microscopic plant fibers embedded in the ivory's pores, clues to the long-vanished workshops where Phoenician artisans carved them. Across the border in Syria, locals trained by UNESCO document damage to Tel Brak's Eye Temple with smartphone cameras, their crowdsourced images stitching together a digital twin of the site. But the most defiant act of rebirth is happening at Nimrud. Here, young Iraqi engineers mix ancient and modern, pouring gypsum mortar recipes lifted from cuneiform tablets into 3D printed molds to replace the Lamashu statues ISIS pulverized. Nearby, a grandmother from a displaced family teaches volunteers how to weave reed mats identical to those that once lined Babylonian streets, her hands moving with muscle memory passed down through generations. They broke the stones, she says, threading fresh stalks, but they couldn't break the knowing. The stakes couldn't be higher. Climate change now threatens Mesopotamia's mud-brick wonders with droughts and flash floods, while looting tunnels snake beneath cities like Uruk. Yet hope flickers in unexpected places like the Baghdad video game studio crafting VR reconstructions of Babylon for schools, or the Kurdish teens who launched a TikTok campaign to map endangered petroglyphs. Even the stars are helping. Satellite radar penetrates cloud cover to reveal buried canals and temples, guiding digs without a single shovel disturbing the soil. These efforts aren't just about saving the past, they're seeds for a future where Mesopotamia's legacy isn't locked in museums, but alive in the hands of those who call it home. And for every marvel reborn, others whisper from the void. The Hanging Garden's elusive traces, the gold of Sargon's lost tomb, 100 cities still sleeping beneath the silt. Their stories, well, that's a tale for next time.